Welcome to More Action, the podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals. I'm your host, Shelly Bryan, and together we have candid conversations with industry leaders to uncover valuable wisdom and lessons learned. My hope is you use these lessons to intentionally take more action in business and life. I hope you share and enjoy. So today's guest is one that I am incredibly excited to have on today. The energy is going to be high. You're going to want to stick around until the end because there's going to be different little pieces or crumbs of action that you're going to hear from Justin Neagle and how he got to the position where he is now and what he is doing. And, this is one that you might want to stop and listen to again because it's the little pieces, the little pearls. If you pull one thing from this, your time invested today is absolutely worth it. So, here on More Action, we are all about just doing that with more action. And Justin Neagle is Chief Storyteller at Spot Migration and co-host of the Building Scale podcast. And he is someone that you're going to hear his heart today. So not only are you going to hear the strategy and the tactics behind a lot of the actions that he's taken, but you're going to hear a lot of heart with it. And that's the key, is that it doesn't have to be either or, it can be and. And so with that, Justin, welcome to the show.
Oh my God, thank you so much. You do this way better than I do. I'm just going to tell already know that you just do this extraordinarily better than I do. So I'm going to learn a lot as I hope your listeners learn a nugget or two from my end, I hope, because I always want to be impactful, but I know I'm going to learn a ton from you. So thank you so much for having me on.
We're just going to have fun. Like that's what this is about. It's about having a lot of fun and making sure that we learn something along the way. Because there's always opportunities. But let's dive in here a little bit, Justin, because I loved hearing, we were talking before, I loved hearing about just kind of your background to get where you are today. And there's something that you did that very few do. And I want to talk about it. And that's actually leaving kind of what you thought was your job to like go do something else. It's a scary jump. It's a scary action. And I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit about how you got to this position and how you got to be a part of Spot Migration.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up Chicago, South Side kid, very much that tale, which is a lot of fun. Then went to school at ASU. So go Sun Devils, Arizona State. I love you so much. I went to get a criminal justice degree because I wanted to be super cop. Inherently, I love helping people. So I thought that's the only way to help people, that or be a doctor or be a firefighter like my dad or a teacher like my aunt. So it was very much that blue collar thought of like, that's how you help people. So I'll go be super cop and I'll help lots of people. 2010 rolls around. Nobody's hiring for any public job at all. So moved back to Chicago after school and just looking for a job. End up at a law firm. I'm like, well, I'll stay here until eventually I become super cop. And I'm going through this process. Start as a clerk. Then I get into records, and then I get into doing conflicts, and then I get pushed into HR, and then I start dating a secretary. Apparently, you can't do HR anymore, so now I'm doing marketing and sales. I can say that because that's my wonderful wife, Jamie, of 9 years. So it worked out all in the long run. But so I was thrust into all of the business world, even though I thought, I just want to be super cop. That's what I want to help people. And then I remember talking to an officer every 3 months, you got to re-up your physical. And I said, hey, I'm done with everything. I've done my psych eval. I've done my lie detector. I've done literally everything. I'm just waiting for an offer for a job. And the officer said, there's no rhyme or reason here. It's like the monkeys throwing darts at a dartboard. You might get a job or you might not. And we generally don't care, is effectively what he said to me, which then I said, wow, this law firm cares about me and is growing me as a human being, and in the police department doesn't care. I'm a number. So then I said, okay, well, I'm just going to go in the business world and this is what I'll do. I was at the law firm, and when I got moved into marketing and business development, I learned quickly that that's not much fun if you're not an attorney at all in any way, shape, or form. or at all. So then I was not the happiest human being. I got pictures of me at that point in time, a little heavier. My hair, even though it is long in my hat, it was longer. My beard was unruly. I could just see that I was unhappy. So my friends Will and Kosh saw the discomfort and just not happiness and said, "Hey, how about you come check out this tech company we're starting and come work out of a basement and let's go from law firm downtown Chicago to a basement in the north side." And I said, "That sounds like a lot. That seems somewhat scary, but all in all, I took the jump. I took the leap. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't have nearly the amount of skills I thought would be necessary to be in part of a startup like that. But over time, I just kept gaining skills. Was always hungry for challenges and just wanted more. And continuous improvement is not only a core value at Spot Migration, it's a family value. We have a sign of our family values downstairs that's 1% better every day. So it just kind of fit. It just made a lot of sense. It was super scary to just go work for effectively a startup, leaving a very established law firm in the city. But that was what I did. I made that decision, and 7.5 years later, I'm very happy that I did it.
That's incredible. I love hearing that. And there was some key things in there that I don't know. I just want to call out so that our
Sure.
listeners can hear this because they might be able to relate to it. Is you had this you kept saying, I want to help people. I want to help
Mhm.
people.
Yep.
Right. And in your mind, helping people was one way, right? Being
Mhm.
a cop or a firefighter, right?
Yep.
Or like some type of like nurse teacher, like
Yep.
helping people had a label tied to it. And so that is the, path that you took. You're like, okay, I'm going to go do this. And then I don't know how many other people have ever been through this. You go to school, you get this training, you come out and like your path it's like a dead end. Like you can't do it, right? You can't help people. And so you're like, I just want to help people. I want to help people. And you maybe start feeling a little defeated, but you're also like, okay, I got to get a job. We have responsibilities. And so you get established in this law firm and you've been working there. I love how you took on different roles in that, just gaining different skills. Like
Yep.
do you see all this like kind of pulling together? Like you're just gaining these different skills at this law firm. HR, dating a secretary. Who would have thought that's not allowed? Who would
I
have thought?
I learned that. I think it was second day of HR training. Apparently that's not allowed. It was really funny.
Yeah.
My boss calls me into her office and it's like, "So you and Jamie are dating?" And I was like, "Oh crap, I'm about to get fired. Like this is not good. All kinds of bad is coming." But no, it was totally fine. She obviously had talked to Jamie as well to make sure that it wasn't a weird boss kind of a relationship kind of situation, which it was not. And she found out because I was running the Chicago Marathon, and Jamie's parents threw me $100 for the charity that I was doing. So that was maybe that's a little bit of the lesson of actions. Be very careful in your relationships, but don't let parents of your people donate to your charity.
What I take from it is like, do what you want to do and let the
Too
rest figure
totally.
it out on its
I
own.
completely agree. I
Like
completely agree.
that's how I took that, Justin. But I love that. And then you could tell, and I just gotta your partners at Spot, like
Mhm.
I want to give them a high five because I hope we all have friends like this in our circle in life and in business, right? That will look at you and be like, you're unhappy. Like
Mhm.
and have like the heart and the honesty and the willingness to be that truthful, to be like, yo, you're not happy, we got to do something about this, and want to support you. And then open up with like, why don't you come on to this tech startup? You've never done tech, and we're a startup, we're risky and risky, welcome, come on
Yep.
in.
Mhm.
But you did
It's
it.
yeah, I find we didn't start EOS when I was at the when I was at the beginning stages of the company, but we are an EOS company now. And one of our core values is being candid. So I think back to that beginning and saying like they were willing to be candid with me then when they saw I was unhappy, right? Like that's just part of who they are, right? Like this is just part of our identity. And I think that when we are trying to in life, it's not just business, life, life legacy, business, all of this stuff. you have to be true to you, and that's going to show no matter what. If you write it down or not, it's going to show. And to be intentional with it, right? Like that's why I think core values become so impactful and important, because it's establishing like these are our standards, right? Like this is the standard of how we live life or run our business, or are trying to build something just greater than ourselves.
Well, and I love that you call out the candidness, and talking about just like building relationships. Let's actually like shift gears there, because
Sure.
building relationships is reciprocal. It's one of those things, and I don't know about anyone listening in right now, and maybe some people that I don't want to listen in right now, that where it wasn't reciprocal. And I remember I have very vivid memories where I was like giving, doing, and one day it hit me. I know exactly where it was, where it hit me, and I'm like, why am I putting in so much for something that they aren't willing to give back to? And I stopped, and the relationship died. And
Mhm.
it was so freeing for me to go through. It hurt for sure. And it was tough, but it was like it was a real learning opportunity for me to be like, okay, I need to find like those people that are going to be like me. And so they could only be as candid with you is because they know you would be that candid back. And so when you look at like business relationships, right? I feel like I just had this conversation this morning with somebody. I was meeting somebody for coffee that I never met this morning, and we were talking about just networking and getting together. And he loves to connect people, but he's like, then I'm out. Like it's on you too to like keep the relationship going. What have been some things that have helped you kind of find that good circle that you can say like are like, wow, these are good characteristics, like gloat on yourself a little bit, be a little cocky at the moment. What are some things that you see in yourself that have helped you develop relationships like that?
It's a great question. I think a big piece of me, and like I'm very energy. I'm very outgoing. I'm very, extroverted. Like that is who I am. That's how I'm built. But I think the thing that makes it work is, again, I'm a helper. Like I want to help. Like I want that to be the front thing first, right? It's like, how can I help you? Like I ask frequently, how can I be impactful? Because I think when I ask how to be helpful, like everybody says it, but how can I be impactful to you? It's very different, because I'm truly, genuinely want to be impactful. I want whatever comes out of this interaction, I want you to be better because of it, or I want you to be in a better place for it. And I think when you really start to try to be helpful, and you really try to be impactful to all these relationships that you're, if it's a random coffee, the first time meeting, and you just start out the gate that way, you will get a good understanding of what that person's about. I feel like, and it's not to say like I only help to get something back in return, because that's not the case at all. I help because I want to help, but you will understand that like, hey, when I put myself out there, I'm trying to, put my name out there or introduce you to somebody else or do these things. Like, are you going to take that to the same level I will? Like, are you going to also deliver that impact that I'm trying to do to you? I think that is the difference maker. I think you can connect. I can connect with tons of people about the most random stuff ever. I mean, I can talk about anything from the Bears to F1 racing to, shopping. Like I can go across the gauntlet. I have no issue there. But until you really try to be impactful in a relationship and try to just make that person better or the best version of them they can possibly be, that's when you see, oh my God, like you'll see the true colors of a person, and if they're going to be able to match your, want for impact. I think that's what I found to be the thing. And like anytime I teach or talk to somebody about like, hey, this is how we build relationships and nurture relationships, it's like you have to help first. Like you have to want to actually help somebody. And if you don't actually want to do that for whatever the mindset that you have going on, you will always be at a deficit, because everything becomes much more transactional in comparison to just giving to give. And when you give to give, it changes how other people treat you.
And it changes how you receive, right? Like on how you're doing it. It's funny, like just like another frame of reference is, and something that's really helped me in the last several years is being of service. how can I be of service, you know? And I look at that by bringing in actually some of my faith, is because it's like, how can I be of service to the people in this room? How can I be of service to this client or to this friend or to this acquaintance, this new connection I met at coffee this morning? How I walk up to it, framing how I want it to, setting the intention for the meeting. How can I be of service to this person? Not what am I going to get from it? And I think when you walk up and reframe and set intentions, it changes how you receive. If you're walking up being like, because I could have, this morning was taking 2 kids to school, then I had to go drop off my car at the service place. Like, I had all the things to be like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time. Like, I could have walked up and been like, I mean, I know you are as busy as me, Justin. And it's like, I could have walked up like that. If I would have walked up, I would have been impatient. I wouldn't have made such a good connection. And I wouldn't have been able to help, going back, right? To help, to be of service to him. And so that's something that I've always done, meeting new people and or existing people, is like, how can I be of service to them? And sometimes it's just being a listening ear. That's honestly, sometimes that's it.
One thing that I found exercise wise that like is very helpful to get into a mindset to think about all these individual interactions to be impactful is every week I do a gratitude post on LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally like, these are the things I did this week that were impactful. Like, you know, like I met this person for coffee in the morning, and like we had this great discussion about, you know, say it's the podcast, or say it's growth, or say it's operations, whatever it is. It's like recognizing that that occurred the week before is super impactful for where your mind goes for the next week and the week after that. And some of that's family stuff. Like, it's like, hey, I got to spend a whole Saturday with Franklin this past weekend. That's awesome. That's the coolest thing ever. Franklin's my son, for your listeners. And it's amazing that I got to do that, right? Like, and not to take that for granted, because like maybe next Saturday I don't get to for whatever reason, and that sucks. And putting yourself in a good mindset is about the preparation of it, not let me try to turn it on in the moment, because it's too hard to like, yeah, man, like the kids were just going crazy in the car and like all these things are happening. And it's just like, yeah, life is going to continue to happen. That does not stop. However, if you set yourself up for success, that is when you find yourself in this place that your mind can easily be in a more impactful or service set mindset.
And I want to just speak to something, because I wholeheartedly believe in this. I've seen your gratitude posts on LinkedIn. Like, I love it. And I want to call this out real quick, because I know that there may be a listener or two out there that might have this thought, that be like, when I do a gratitude post, or when I talk about all the wonderful things I am so excited about doing, I feel arrogant, or I feel like I'm bragging, or I feel like it's not going to be received the right way. I want to give you listening in right now some food for thought. And you know me, I'm going to give it to you straight. Is number one, if you aren't going to cheer for you, no one else is. And you cannot. So number two is, you cannot control anybody else's reaction, only yours. And so when you post something like that and you're worried, like, oh, it's going to seem like I'm bragging, or, oh, it's going to seem this, you can't control that. Get it out of your mind. Only control what you can do. And those people, number three, those people that are going to look at that as bragging or negative or whatever, those aren't the people you want in your circle anyway. So quickly weed them out and move on. So I just want to say, like, doing this type of like gratitude, and I don't want to I find on social media, it's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, just write a gratitude letter every morning, write in your journal, write in this, whatever works for you. You know what I mean? What worked for Justin, that's what works for him. I do it completely different. And it's not always forward facing. Sometimes it is.
Sure.
It's whatever feels good for me, selfishly me. And that's all that I need to worry about. And anyone else, you know what? We can move on. So I just wanted to speak to that, because I know that there is that feeling out there that like sometimes it can feel braggy, and, oh, like they're going to think I'm just so arrogant. You can't control how they think. Move on. Take care of you.
I remember, this was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago at this point. I remember writing email to a prospect, or writing email to a client. And I email like I talk. I have the exclamation points are in there. It's like, how are you doing? Like, it's just, that is who I am. And I don't change that. Right. And I remember thinking, like, overthinking and saying like, oh my God, like, am I coming off as like this person that I'm not, that I'm like, oh, you're just a salesperson or something like this, being like this cheery, person that everything is all exciting. And I remember talking to Kasha about this, and she's like, well, like, do you feel that way? Like, is that truly how you feel? And I'm like, yeah, I just feel like I'm happy to talk to people. Like, I'm a happy human being. I don't know how else to live. And she's like, well, then don't change yourself. Like, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Like, hey, if that person isn't interested in your exclamation marks, then it's probably not the person you should talk to, because you're never gonna gel with that human being. Like, you're just too different. There are 7 billion people in the world or whatever. Inherently, there are gonna be people that don't particularly like you for whatever reason. And it's just like, there are lots of other people that will, and they'll love your energy, and they'll expect you to just bring it as hard as you can. And I got to that point, and I figured out, oh, just be you. Just whatever, however, obviously be healthy, but like, be you to whatever that is. And everything else kind of falls in place when it comes to relationships.
What a good realization. And I appreciate that. I hope someone listening picks that up. And if they're in that weird space, kind of questioning how they are acting and thinking about changing who they are, listen right there.
And I
Listen
completely
back to that.
agree. You got to be
So,
an advocate for yourself. Like, there's no question
100%.
about that. You hit it right on the nose. Like, if you're not going to stand up for yourself, and you're not going to root for yourself and cheer for yourself, it's real hard for somebody else to do that. Like, that's not like that's not how that works. So, really good point.
Okay. I want to shift gears here because you mentioned something earlier, and that's EOS. So I want to talk
Mhm.
about that. But before we get into it, so stick around, because if you haven't heard, I know you may, because it's on my site. I've talked about this book called
Traction
Traction,
right
right?
there.
Yeah, it's right behind me. Traction is a fantastic book and system to implement. And I actually would like you to share your experience with that. This isn't a sales pitch. Neither one of us get any kickback from this
Nope.
at all. So this is going to be very candid if you've ever thought about doing it, but I'd love to hear how it's helped you and spot migration. But before we get into that, just real quick, give us, and we might come back to this in the morning. It doesn't have to be real quick, but spot migration. What is it that this tech startup that now you've been with 7.5 years? Is that what you said?
Yep. Yep.
7.5 years. So we're doing good. We made it 7.5 years as a
Oh, yeah.
startup. Fantastic. Like, give us a little bit about spot migration, and then what was the decision to trigger EOS, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
For sure. So, Spot Migration is an IT and cybersecurity services company. A big difference maker that we are is we are all inclusive, right? So, a lot of times when you think of an IT guy that comes in to fix a server or computer, or printer, whatever it is, you think, hey, they are going to bill you at an hourly rate. We remove that concept completely and say, hey, like, we want to be your partner. We want to be seen more as like an internal IT department. We're going to have all the tools that a full department would have, but we can kind of bring that enterprise level, service, as well as tool set, as well as technical capabilities, to more of a small and medium-sized business. And specifically, we love the AEC space. That's the Building Scale podcast, is based on that leadership that's in that space. And we love it so much because there's so many similarities, which is baffling to us all the time. We're like, oh my God, it's so the same. I mean, there's tons of differences, but like, when we see something that's so similar to us, we're like, we had that same problem, or we've seen this before. It's always so refreshing to see, like, oh, now we get to help somebody else. Again, back to help. Surprise, surprise. We get to help somebody else through their journey, which is just so it just fills the cup. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. It
I
just
love
fills the
it.
cup.
I love it. And just for everyone tuning in, the AEC, this is another like random connection for Justin and I. That's architecture, engineering, and construction, right?
Yep.
Brian contracting, Chris and I are running our construction company. It's so funny how just paths start crossing. And what is very interesting about this conversation, while you do work in the AEC, right, and service a lot of the clients,
Yep.
but this is still a relevant service to all businesses,
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
but this is what I love about this podcast. I love like tying all these little bows for everybody. Is what we now want to talk about is like not only what you do, but like how you guys are operating. And that's where EOS comes in. And so as a startup, if you have had a startup, or now you're in this 5 to 7 to,
Mhm.
even kind of the 3-year stage, you're like, holy cow, what? I have all these different things. We're growing. We have people. It's just too much. Tell us a little bit about what triggered kind of the decision to bring on EOS and why EOS was the choice for you guys.
For sure. First, we tried to self-implement. We got the book traction. Hey, let's just do the thing that the book says, which, if anybody has read Traction, it is like a tactical guide. Like it is very dense, no question about it. It's great. The book's amazing, but it's very difficult to try to self-implement. That's not to say that nobody could, but like for us, we try to do that. Like if we take core values, which is a crucial component to EOS, we had 8. None of those 8 are our current core values, which is 4, right? So it was very obvious that having an outside perspective that understands a system of how to run a business, any business, doesn't matter what the product that you're selling or creating, a service you're providing, none of that matters. It's just structure of the business. How does the business side run? And for us, what we came to the correlation after, again, trying to self-implement, saying we kind of do this not very well, but we kind of do some ideas here. We brought in an implementer to do called a 90-minute, and it was very apparent that all the struggles we were having operationally in the business were because we had no structure. Like that's the simplest way to put it. We had some things that existed and ways we did stuff, but it was really kind of, very loose in comparison to saying like, no, this is how we run a meeting, or no, this is how we do this process, or no, this is the way we explain why we're unique to the market. Like all of the aspects of the business side, from sales to, service delivery or product delivery to finance, all runs through one system. And that's the beauty of EOS. And what we have found in the last 5 years, a little over 5 years at this point, it's such an unbelievable game changer because of the fact that when everybody runs on the same system, you don't have as many communication errors. And it's not to say that no communication errors happen ever again, but when you're thinking about like, how do we handle things? How do we handle issues that come up in the business? Everything's running through the same lens. So it makes it so much easier to actually get to the root of the problem, and then be able to address it and fix it. And then look, okay, who is accountable for this, right? Holding people accountable is a huge part. Having accountability chart, which is another tool out of the US tool belt, as well as just knowing who should be taking care of something. Like, like when everybody, especially when you're smaller, everybody wears like 1,000 hats. And it's just like, okay, well, if we want to implement a chat bot on our website, it's like, well, who should be the one that's researching it and doing all the work to get to us to do that? So what we found is being much more operationally mature affects all aspects of our business, including the sales and marketing piece, because there are like 40,000 managed service providers that provide IT services to businesses across the US. And that's a commodity, as any commodity could be. So like, what makes you different? Well, we run with process. Like we have actual processes for everything we do, which makes us inherently more efficient. It's like if you went to a job site, a construction job site, and it's like, we don't have a process to pour concrete. We do it 4 different ways, or we don't have a process to install electric. We do that depending on what guy's on site and what the way he wants it done. It's like, that is so inefficient, and you lose out on obviously profitability that comes with that, but you just lose out on how the team is cohesive together. So it just impacts all parts of the business, which we didn't know when we thought 5 years ago. We just wanted to fix the operational problems we had. But now it's like, oh, everything is better because you have a structure for your business.
I love the term that you use, operationally mature now. And, that's something that if you're tuning in right now, and either you're a leader in an organization or you're a business owner yourself, like, could you say that about yourself? Could you say that about like the role that you hold? Are you operationally mature? And if the answer is no, okay, like, here's some great steps. You could pick up the book Traction, right? Again, we get no kickback from this. Yep. It's just a good book. Or find some other system process that will work for you and what you do. But I think it's like admitting, I love that you guys were like, yeah, we thought we had systems and operations, and then we just realized we had nothing. And I think it's so true. How many hats do we wear in our life every single day, right? Like I told you, like I was like a taxi taxi cab driver this morning. I was networker. Oh, and like car dropper offer. Like I wore 3 hats before coming home and having a talk about with Chris about an employee to then also now I'm podcaster, right? So we wear so many hats that when you have all of those systems and processes in hand, you can take them off and put them back on and be more efficient. But then you can also find the hats that fit you really well, that you want to like leave on. And I think that is really important too, and probably helped you. And I'd love for you to speak with this with the team, decide who does what really well and who wants to be there. So how has that evolved through going through this operational maturity?
Yeah, so I want to second your point. Obviously, very pro EOS, love it, no question. I think the main idea though is you have to have a system. You have to have some system that you're utilizing, and everybody's using the same system. Like that's like there are other versions of an operating system, but for us, EOS has been amazing. So like that's but any business should have some form of operational system. Like that's to me is almost a non-negotiable. Like you will never get anywhere close to the place that you could without one. So with that said, tasks and roles and all these things, all these hats. So accountability chart helps a whole bunch. So when you actually map out all the things your company does and somebody's got to, it's only one person gets to sit in a seat. All right, hey, you're sitting in this seat. That means you're responsible for these particular roles. So if that's business development or if it's service delivery or if it's, running the books, bookkeeping, whatever it is, right? Like, that's your role. The tool in EOS that I love maybe more than anything else when it comes to like understanding a role and getting the right people in the right seat is delegate and elevate tool. So effectively it's 4 quadrants. The first quadrant's the thing that you're great at and you love to do. It's like, if I could just do this for the rest of my life, I am going to be an extraordinarily happy human being. And that's great. The next quadrant over is going to be things that you like to do and you're pretty good at. Like it's stuff that you could totally do. It's fine. It's not the love, but it's totally fine. Then it's things you can do, but you really hate doing. You just don't like doing them. They're just not, they don't fill the cup in any way. And then the last quadrant, stuff that you hate doing and you're horrible at. You're just not like, it's just not good at. The goal for every leader is to live in the first box, right? That's the goal. But the first step is eliminating the last box, and then the second to last box, and then again, eventually getting to the one first box there, the stuff that you love to do and that you're just really great at. It's where you have your superpower, as a lot of people say it. And what we have found is that changes over time, right? Like you think that this is the thing that you want to do, but as you grow and the business changes, you realize that like, hey, like we never had like a BD role, right? Like per se, like we never had somebody that was dedicated solely to doing that. And then you start saying like, okay, well, is that a thing I like to do? Like, should that fall under what my purview is? Or is that something that like we need to do, but like none of us can do it? Now we can hire somebody to do that because none of us are good at doing it, right? And it's really identifying the places that if you just do this thing all the time, you will have the highest leverage for your company without question. And it's really identifying that. And every quarter, like we do this exercise every quarter to say like, has anything changed? Is there a way that we can offload some of this stuff? An easy example of this is like admin stuff. Most business leaders are not interested in scheduling and emailing back and forth and doing all like the administrative functions. And those are things that like, can we hire somebody to do that? Can we have a VA do that? Can we have a part-time person do that? Like, and then making those decisions, because once you get out of those roles, you free up so much more time for something that's going to inherently bring you more growth, revenue, and all that kind of stuff. And just happiness. Like we always forget, hey, we're a growing company. It's amazing, but none of us are really that happy. And it's like, okay, well, there's a big problem. Even though the company looks healthy, it's like, if your leadership team isn't happy, there is an issue that you need to solve.
Big time, big time. So I love that you just shared that. And I love you used a tool. This whole conversation, there's been a few things that have come up to just in mind that I think, honestly, I've just been having these thoughts kind of like behind the scenes, is just looking at like skills. Everything that we are doing, whether again, you're in an organization, leading your family and or leading, like building a business right now, right? Is like, you can look at it and be like, is that a skill gap? can I fix that skill gap? And does it make sense for me to fix that skill gap or delegate it out? And so it's like all of these different things, these tools that you're using, learning the EOS process and organization process, that is simply a skill. Anyone has access to that, right? Through the book. And if you wanted to invest further with them or different process, whatever
Sure.
makes sense, but it is a skill that is learned that can be applied for the rest of your life. So like with, spot migration and what you guys are doing, the next business or next side of the arm or next whatever, you will do so much faster, incredibly faster, because now you have developed this skill to be able to implement faster. And so bringing up EOS was not to pout and be like, EOS is the best thing ever. I think it is a great process and we've used some of it, but we found our own. You implemented, brought in the implementer. I loved hearing that, but it's a skill. It's a skill that you develop that you can take on forever. And so I think, one thing that I love in just hearing this, having this conversation with you, Justin, is just don't stop at like learning skills. Like having a deficiency in something doesn't make you bad. I talk about this on other episodes is adding labels, right? Like I'm dumb or I don't have that experience or blah, 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 blah. Like you can like good or bad labels. Like I hate all of this. It's just what is. So like I want to develop my skill of organization. How do I do that? Right? It could be YouTube videos. It could be having conversations with Justin. Who knows? But it's taking these opportunities where you want to grow, learning the skill, and then you get to make a decision. Is this something I love? Is it something I'm good at? What do I want to do there? Going through that chart, I did another episode on this, on the Eisenhower matrix. Are you familiar with the Eisenhower
No,
matrix?
please share it with me.
So it's very similar in the sense that 4 quadrants, you're looking at urgency and importance, as you are leading an organization. President Eisenhower said, I'm going to butcher this quote, essentially things that are urgent are typically not important, and the things that are important are not urgent. So looking at where you want to leverage your time, your skills, your benefit and value into the organization is I want to work on the things that are important, and rarely is that urgent. And so those are the things that I need more time on. I need to focus on things that are urgent. I can tee off, I can delegate, I can send it to someone else to handle and give them the tools to handle it. So it's very similar in the sense that like looking at, okay, well, what am I good at? And what do I love doing? And then looking at all the various combinations of the two. So when you were sharing that, I was like, oh, this is the Eisenhower matrix, just with like a different frame of mind. So all of these just help you analyze and ask questions and reflect and take action on what you find. And you know me, I've screwed up so many times. I mean, you might not know me that well, Justin, but you will. And those that tune in on the show, like learn. Screwing up, failing, finding out what doesn't work really fast, learn the lesson, move on. Like at least you now have that skill to make a better decision going forward.
Getting in the uncomfortable zone is a good thing. You don't want to go too deep in the water, right? Because if you get like to a place where it's like, oh man, I'm just drowning, like then you'll never start acquiring that skill in any meaningful way, right? You'll know that it's in your brain. You'll think this is a horrible thing. It sucks. I'm horrible at it. The labeling, right? Like the whole aspect. In comparison to like the research shows, like go 4% in, right?
Yeah.
And get 4% into the uncomfortable, because that's enough to see change, but it's not so much that you feel like you're drowning, right? So it's like you want to have incremental changes over time, and any skill is that way. So if it's sales, construction, different skill sets, marketing, finance, leadership, culture, whatever it is, all of it is just incremental changes over time. That doesn't sound sexy in any way, shape, or form, but it is literally the way that you get something done. You either, it's time or money. That's how we do everything in life. How anything gets achieved, it's time or money. Hiring somebody to do the thing you hate, or learning the thing you hate and then delegating to somebody else, or learning something you don't necessarily hate, but you didn't know about, and now you actually love it, and now you can do it. But all of it is time and money.
I love that. I love that. And I just read this frame yesterday kind of on this subject that I want to share with everybody because it just made me chuckle. It's it makes total sense. But, when you're trying something new and talking about the uncomfortable, it can either be a hat, a haircut, or a tattoo, right? A
Ooh.
hat is something that you can put on, test it out. You don't like this hat, take this hat off, set it back down. Then you get another hat, put that hat on, try that hat out for a little bit. And you're like, oh, this is too much. Take it, right? So it's on and off. A haircut, you're investing a little bit more, right? So like you're going in a little bit more, and now like maybe you get kind of like a bad cut. I don't know if anyone's ever had one of those. Like you get a bad cut and you're like, dang, okay, now I got to wait a little bit longer. Talking about time, I got to wait a little bit longer. So you're in deeper, you're a little bit more uncomfortable to see if it works out. And if it doesn't, you'll still recover. It just takes a little time.
Mhm.
But then you got a tattoo. We all know, right? It's forever. I mean, there's laser tattoo now, but you get the point, right?
Oh yeah.
Is that tattoo is with you forever, and that has longer term consequences. So I just loved this when I read about it, because when you are taking on something new, and as we're growing our company, we're going to new levels that are new. It's like, I'm going to look at it and be like, all right, is this a hat, a haircut, or a tattoo? What are we doing right now? And Chris and I inherently, our entire time together, we have done all three. Let's just put it that way. We have done all three. But really at the end of the day, I think the more risk, the more uncomfortable you take, the more like opportunities, and it's not uncomfortable anymore. What was uncomfortable is now comfortable. So now you got to go to the haircut, because like hats are not a big deal for you. It's just something fun I wanted to share.
I've not heard this concept. I love that. I don't know if it's because I'm a massive hat wearer. I literally wear a hat just about every day. So like maybe there's something to that. But I totally love this concept of hat, haircut, or tattoo. That is so true in all aspects of life. I think that's the other big thing that I learned doing EOS with five and a half years ago, we starting. I realized that all of that concept is applicable to everything in life, right? It's just like your personal life, your family, right? It's like, well, where do you want to go, right? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want your life to look like in general? And it's like, oh, I want to, vacation 4 times a year or whatever, whatever the things are. And it's just like, until you make a roadmap for that and then build a structure around how you get there, and then be intentional and keep, I do have a journal, but like keep a scorecard of like what those things are. It's really difficult to get to the unbelievable places that you can absolutely achieve because you don't have a structure, right? For me, I believe in the concept of 3 S's of success, which is strength, strategy, and structure. You need all three. They need to be balanced. And EOS is a great example of how that can work in an operational way.
It's so great. It's so great. I really appreciate you sharing that experience with EOS, because I know that there's people out there that have read Traction like us, but haven't dove deeper or heard how it has affected the business. And I guess just to kind of sum it up before we move on, like 5 years ago now that you've been with EOS, ballpark figure, how much do you think that's helped the bottom line of the company?
Oh, bottom line, massive.
Financially, we're
Yeah.
talking money here.
Yeah, no, that's massively. So one, in this whole process, there was the concept of not pricing well, not seeing, which is such an obvious thing, should be very, very direct and obvious, but like not even understanding like who's making sure that the deals that we are signing are deals that make sense to sign, like going forward. Why is this pricing the right pricing? And again, for us, because we're all in, we don't have a luxury to, hey, here's a change order, things are different, let me charge you more, or hey, like it took us double the time. Like it's like that doesn't exist in our world. So like that concept was really early on. I remember going through an Excel sheet and learning way more about Excel than I could possibly think about before then, and being like, holy shit, we're just not pricing like we need to increase our prices. Like this is not tangible. We'll never sustain this. This is totally gonna fail. So remember doing that. For us, HQ in Chicago, we had the best quarter we ever did in the beginning of 2020. Then the world shuts down, and then we had client loss and all these different things. People went out of business. Like it was really hard on us. So like I think like, man, we were on a trajectory like to insane land, probably at that point, probably 5x, in that kind of realm. Had to take a back seat. Like COVID years were more rough on us in general, but now we're past that point again, right? And I equate the lull, because we'd always just been pretty high growth, that like the lull of that COVID was really hard on all of us, like talk about burnout and like, oh my God, none of us are doing anything well and all this stuff really happening, to then us realizing that like, yeah, but we have a structure. And if this structure wasn't in place, we would totally have, I don't even know what would have happened. Maybe not been in business anymore. But because we had a true structure there, we would have totally been in line. And now we just this year we're having the best year we ever had, which is crazy because again, when you're small, it's easy to grow, 50% or something because it's not a big deal. And this year we're currently up 47%. So like things are wild, like that we have just kept getting a little bit better all the time. Again, incremental changes just get a little bit better all the time, and like it rocks your world in regards to both top line revenue and then bottom line profit. We frequently say top lines for vanity, bottom lines for sanity, and it's very true.
Well, it's just to piggyback on that. I don't know if y'all listening in caught that, but the organization, I asked the question about the upside potential of what the organization added to it. What Justin shared was also weathering the downside, right? As business owners, as entrepreneurs, we're like, there's so much money. Let's go. We can all do it. It's so easy. We see everybody on social media doing it. It's so great. Let's talk about that. And then you hit a few downsides. I mean, Chris and I have hit some downsides, and it's like, then you're like, whoa, like, holy cow. Can we weather this? How are we going to weather this? How are we going to get through this? But having the systems also protected them on the downside, which I guarantee it eliminated a significant portion of your competitors because of the lack of organization.
Our revenue, like during COVID and stuff, it probably dropped, I think like 40%. Like, like significant, it's super significant. And we did not have to lay anybody off. We didn't have to do any of those things. It was just very much like we built a system with EOS to like really make sure that our company was like strong. Like I think people, they obviously numbers are super important. That's inherent. But like, how much money do you have in the bank? Like how long can you operate if all of your clients left today? Like if they all disappeared, they poof, Infinity Wars happens, Thanos snaps his fingers, they're all gone. How long are your doors open? Oh, well, they're not. And then it's like, that's a lot of times. And for us, it was like, oh, like going through EOS, it's like one of the things is like, well, it's financial health. Like, what's the financial health of the company? Like, if literally everything stopped today, what happens? And it's like, oh yeah, we'll run a year. Like we'll go a year before we have to worry about like anything happening to our people or the business having to close down services or something like that. Like
Well,
we are very, 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 very strong in regards to having just a system to make sure that we're never going to have to worry about those things, or if we are, like the world is just collapsing. So
what that gave you is freedom, right?
Oh yeah.
Freedom and like safety, and running a business that's two words that you don't hear a whole heck of a lot, like freedom and safety, right? But having that in place allowed you some of that, so you guys could focus on the main things that you were doing and using to build the business up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're kind of coming to an end here, but I wanted to know, just because I just have really enjoyed this conversation, just the different steps, the different actions that you've taken, the good, the bad. You've brought up lots of very like great and shared experiences with our listeners. But I'm kind of curious, how lucky are you? Like, how has luck played to your success?
I love this question. I feel that there is always an aspect of luck. I think that is absolutely, you get dealt the hand you're dealt, and there is a luck to that. There's a luck aspect that goes with it. However, I do think that when you are prepared and you put yourself in the right scenarios and you do the right thing and you're just continuously, chopping wood and you're putting in the hours, I think that luck has shades those that are prepared. Luck is for the prepared. There's a quote that sounds much better than what I'm saying right now. But that's effectively where I feel like I think that luck has an aspect, but I also think that it's not nearly as much as if you're putting in the work, you're doing the preparation, you're studying, you're learning, you're upskilling, incremental changes, like all of those things put you in a much better position to be lucky, I guess. Right. I think that like I can't be lucky to get, I don't know, Microsoft is a client or Tesla is a client or something like that, unless I put myself in positions that interact with whoever's making decisions at those companies, right? Like you have to make sure that you're in the right place, and that increases your luck, is what I would say.
I love that. I love that. It is so great. So great. There's so much gold in that. If you go back and just even listen to that answer, those are the thought processes that high action takers do. And I am not surprised one bit by your answer. And I know why we were connected. So I just love that. Now, Justin, where is the best place for everyone to connect with you and the podcast and even learn more about spot migration?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn, I am a LinkedIn junkie. So hit me up on LinkedIn, Justin Neagle. That's Neagle. I'm hard to miss. I might be the only Justin Neagle on LinkedIn, but if not, you'll see me and you'll say that's the guy for sure. No question about it. Spotmigration.com. That's the easiest place to go there. And then Building Scale, buildingscale.net. That's our podcast. You can find it on the Spot Migration. You can find it anywhere a podcast exists. Building Scale, normal spelling, and you'll see this gorgeous face with Will's gorgeous face next to me on the cover of our cover art. So
awesome. Well, I will absolutely make sure that all of that information is linked in the show notes. So you're going to want to connect with Justin and follow along with him there and tune into his podcast as well. Of course, after listening here on More Action. But Justin, I just got to acknowledge you. Thank you for your time and just your openness and candidness, right? Coming back to this, like your candidness in wanting to help our listeners just learn about, organization, taking the big jump from a job, doing things that didn't make sense in the beginning, but all make sense now. I just think that you have such an incredible background, but you are learning such skills that you're just going to be able to help so many people in the future. So thank you so much for joining.
Oh, no, thank you. This has been amazing. I loved it. I'm usually on the other side of the interview, so that it's fun to be on this side to talk more because I have a talking problem. But nonetheless, no, this is great. I'm super excited for this relationship to grow and nurture and be proof of what we've talked about today.
100%, 100%. Well, again, everyone tuning in right now, if you loved this or know someone that could be even thinking about EOS or wanting to hear kind of unique stories or pull different bits and pieces to be able to apply to their life or business, make sure that you share this out on your socials. You can tag us and connect on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm telling Justin he's got to come over there too, as well as YouTube. So share it out. This is how this show grows. It is 100% organic and because of you. And just know that if you take that 10 seconds to leave me a 5-star review on the show, it helps reach someone else. So thank you so much for that time. And don't forget to keep taking more action.